Wing. Sorry, wing you. Hello, everybody. Hi. And thanks so much for coming to hang out with us on this December evening. Thrilled to have you here. Thrilled to be hosting Stephen Spotswood I'm Brandy from Mysterious Galaxy. Wow. You're on our Comcast page, so you probably got there. You knew what was going on. But tonight we're so excited to have this really awesome event. We have Carolyn Williams and Stephen Spotswood here to discuss Murder Crossed Her Mind. So beautiful, so glorious. There's going to be a little button at the bottom of the page once I let them all get to talking, where you can buy this book because you want to read it because it's beautiful and that's why you came here. And we're all working at 100% right now. But it's going to be good. I'm going to just give you a quick introduction. We have Carolyn Williams, who is an editor at Doubleday, where she acquires literary and upmarket fiction and select nonfiction. Recent projects include national bestseller and indie next pick Do Tell by Lindsay Lynch, New York Times bestselling author Ariel Lawhon's, I hope I said that right, The Frozen River, and Allison Epstein's A Tip for the Hangman, and she lives in New York. Wow, thrilling. And then also super exciting, we have Stephen Spotswood, an award-winning playwright, journalist, and educator. As a journalist, he has spent much of the last 2 decades writing about the aftermath of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the struggles of wounded veterans. His dramatic work has been widely produced across the United States, and he is the winner of the 2021 Nero Award for Best American Mystery. He makes his home in Washington, D.C. with his wife, YA author Jessica Spotswood. I'm not going to tell you about the book because I think that's going to come up with the 2 people who are actual experts on that. But I am just going to say thanks again and leave the stage. And if you have any questions that come up while we're having this conversation, Carolyn and Stephen are going to be chatting for about half an hour. After that, we're going to move to a Q&A portion. So if you have a question that comes up and you really want to ask it because you're someone who, like me, who forgets all the time, that's okay. Just send it to the little Q&A button on the side right under the chat conversation icon on Crowdcast. And those questions will all be saved up. So then we get to the Q&A portion. I can take all of those beautiful questions as though you'd written them and pass them as notes throughout the conversation. All of that's good to go. If you want to purchase that book, there's going to be a button down there. It's not there right now because of me, but there's going to be a button. And when you order from there, you'll get a signed book plate along with your book, which makes this all the more exciting. And then you can remember having been here with us. Thanks so much. I'm going to get out here, and people who you came here to actually listen to are going to hop in. All right. Enjoy. See you at the end of the event. Okay. Drop it. I'm doing it. Main stage. Nope. Only one of you. Yeah. Bye.
Okay. I think we're starting now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, Steve, delighted to be in conversation with you. Thanks. Yeah. So should we start off? Do you want to give us your little elevator speech of what readers are looking forward to in book 4, Murder Crossed Her Mind?
So, you assume I have an elevator speech. How
many events have you done so far? Come on.
Not enough. I don't even have an elevator speech for book 1. So in Murder Crossed Her Mind, it's a take on The Man Who Knew Too Much. And it involves the disappearance of a woman named Vera Bodine, who is an elderly, agoraphobic shut-in, who just so happens to have a photographic memory, which has helped her as a career as a secretary for a very high-priced law firm, and has helped her help the FBI hunt down Nazis in America during World War II. And now this woman who never leaves her little apartment has gone missing. And the only person that's noticed is one of her old But now he's the client, and he's approached Will and Lillian to help find his missing friend. And in the meantime, Will is dealing with an assault and a theft, like against her personally. And Lillian is dealing with some repercussions from the last book and her conflict with a murder aficionado and Vincent Price lookalike, Jessica Cannon. Is that good? Is that good? I'll get her.
I think that's the next time too. But so I'm curious, like you mentioned the kind of man who knew too much, woman who knew too much trope. Did you know from the jump that she was going to be mixed up with Nazis? I feel like, you always have such selling, grabby premises, but that one I felt like, especially speaking from the publisher, we were excited about the Nazis.
Well, if I knew immediately, like I knew she had, I was like, she's an agoraphobe, she's a hoarder, she has a photographic memory. It didn't take too long to, I don't know how I jumped to Nazis. Probably because I was like scrolling through, I do a lot of like looking through the New York Times archive from like, just the 40s. I just like going through and seeing what I can weave in. But as soon as I thought of Nazis, I'm like, oh, fantastic. We've got to get Nazi hunting in there. Like, it's just too much fun. And there were so many things going on in like tracking down like spy rings during the war, like on American soil. So, so yeah, I knew exactly how. Like, I knew it was a pitchy, fun, hooky thing.
Yeah, good job. So one of the things that I most appreciate about you as a series writer, Steve, is that you're really gifted at building upon your existing story and cast of characters without making new readers feel like they might be behind the 8 ball because maybe they missed an installment. How did that work in this edition of Pentecost and Parker's Adventures? How did you kind of play with what we already know about Forrest Whitson, who kind of in the past has been sort of a thorn in our characters' sides, and obviously Jessica Cannon, who was a great villain from the previous installment, who really is only getting worse as time goes on. Spoiler, he's a bad guy still.
Yeah, he does not have a redemption arc. Not in this one. Yeah, this one was pretty. This is a pretty self-contained mystery. At least like the central plot is a pretty self-contained mystery. Like new readers can dive right in, and hopefully I do a good enough job in like the first few chapters of introducing Will and Lillian and the world and the dynamic that they'll pick up on it pretty quickly. And as for like bringing in characters from previous books, like bringing in Forrest Whitson and Jessica Cannon and like this whole like deep bench of supporting characters, I found like I think it's the playwright in me, where I don't like putting in a ton of exposition, where I don't want to put in like 2 paragraphs about who Detective Lazenby is, and why he, like, how everyone feels about him, when I can just have Will or Lillian react a certain way to a character, and then what kind of person it is, like by how they react. Like when Will first, like, it's like, oh God, Whitson's the client. Like the way that she talks about him, you kind of get a jump on their previous relationship, and hopefully I do that throughout, so that because I was talking with Lev Rosen, who does the Andy Mills series. I got to be the you to him during his DC stop. And he was saying that his editor told him that every book in a series is somebody's first, no matter like where in the series it is. So I really am trying to be cognizant of that. I try and like give everyone everything they need to jump in. And if something's not there, it's not, a load bearing thing.
Yeah, I think you're doing a good job. Not that I'm biased. And so kind of similarly, in the previous book, you introduced Holly Quick, who is Will's current significant other. And in the previous 3 installments, because Holly gets introed in that one, Will sort of tends to get romantically entangled, shall we say, in her cases. And was this a challenge for you to kind of maintain that relationship without having Will sort of getting a little flirty with, I mean, I guess it's a slightly less sexy cast of mystery havers here, but it just sort of, it's always a fun part of this other book. So I was curious how that played out.
Yeah, it's a, so I absolutely put Holly in as somebody who I could think of who we could have with Will longer term than her like one-off romances. She's like, in the previous book, she's made bad choices, just bad choices, as far as romance is concerned. So I kind of wanted somebody who was like interesting and complex enough that I will enjoy writing her for a long period of time, and readers will enjoy reading her for a long period of time, and who is smart enough to keep up with not only Will, but like the Will Lillian dynamic, who can like slot in and like not play catch up the entire time. So just making her real sharp in her own way. But at the same time, it's like, it's Will is having all the usual like trauma of like navigating her longest relationship. It's a 6 months, but it's the longest continuous relationship she's ever had. So she's still trying to figure out how to make that work, because you know she's got baggage. Oh my god.
And do you feel like you're putting any of your own writerly kind of neuroses into Holly, who is a bit stressed out at times as a character?
I don't know if she gets my neuroses. I do get to get real meta with her though. It's fun. Like when she talks, like she writes mysteries. Like that's what she does. Like so I get to like have her talk about writing mysteries to Lillian and Will, who solve mysteries in front of readers who are reading a mystery. And yeah, I get to be a little tongue in cheek and a little meta with her. I don't know if she's the kind of writer I am, but I don't know if we share the same neuroses. Probably. I mean, I think all writers have the same. There are certain generic sets of problems we don't face.
Fair enough. And so how do you feel that Will and Lillian have sort of evolved over the course of the series? Have their journeys taken them in directions that especially surprised you? I mean, I know you have sort of a vision overarching, but book to book.
I don't know if when I started the first book, whether I realized just how good friends they were going to be, and how important their friendship was going to be. Like they're excellent coworkers and partners, but I think it's the friendship and like the reliance on each other for emotional support. And sort of like calling each other on each other's bullshit, and filling in the gaps for each other that like close friends can do. So that evolution has been really nice. And I do recognize that like it feels a little one-sided right now, because like we know Will is transparent. Like there are chunks of her backstory we don't know. She's the point of view narrator. Whereas Lillian is a cipher, or was a cipher, and like in this book you start to get hints about her past, and what shaped her, which leads into a lot more learning about her. So that, I think, like a lot of her backstory, a lot of her history, a lot of like the stuff that makes her tick, is constantly a surprise, just because I haven't been living in her head for 5 years the way I have with Will. Yeah.
Fair enough. One of the other things that I really love in this particular book, but across the series, is the way that you show New York and American values sort of changing in the post-war post-war American environment. Could you speak a little bit to that part of Will and Lillian's, both their world and the way it's changing their work over the books?
Yeah, that's a
big question.
That's a big question.
Whichever part you want.
I think there's the obvious one. There's I said it in the first book in 1945, specifically so that I could write them into the 50s, so that they would have to run face first into McCarthyism and the Lavender Scare and all of that, which really started before the 50s. There's stuff that's happening in 1957 predates. That is basically the beginning of the Lavender Scare. But really, it's I just really like this. So the first book, Fortune Favors the Dead, it's this locked room mystery at a wealthy Upper East Side mansion with a family that had a seance for a Halloween party. It's super 1910s to 1930s, and it's in that book I got to sort of show the crumbling of that family and the dying of that that era, and sort of how that is evolving into the post-war era of what we think of as the American dream era, the 2.5 kids, white picket fence, the suburbs. We invented the suburbs, right after World War II. And where Will and Lillian are placed, Will being bisexual and Lillian being a professional woman, working in a field that is traditionally not for women. I get to show the corners of American society that are not in that narrative, that are not in that the golden age of America tapestry that we think of, that are on all the murals of the 1950s post-war. And that's fun. It's awful too. It's I do a lot of hyperfixation on some really terrible events in American history that really just get paved over. But I think are important and are fascinating to me. Hopefully they'll be fascinating to everyone else.
I think they're definitely more fascinating to contemporary readers than they would have been to the majority of mainstream readers circa the late 40s, shall we say. So, yeah, telling some good stories. Good job. And then just sort of, do you feel like the cases that you're presenting in the books, obviously you're giving them sort of a modern take. You're a writer in 2023, so you can't help but bring your own perspective to the table. But do you feel like, I know that kind of we've got a rising tension with the police department as Will and Lillian have sort of solved more cases in their own way than perhaps some of our police friends and foes would like to see happening. Do you feel like that also is sort of speaking to the growing heteronormativity of this period?
Yeah, the police part. Yeah, I mean, that's on purpose. There's a long history of corruption in the New York City Police Department.
What?
That it's going to get bad, but it used to be so much worse than 1947. Yeah, I think the idea that law and justice are separate things. Very, very occasionally they might just get within handshake distance. And from the jump, from book one, I wanted to show that they Will and Lillian are interested in justice, not following the letter of the law. The ending of that first book, they subvert the law. They're constantly doing it and lying to the cops. Yeah, I think I would like to hopefully continue to show that the law does not work. They're separate laws. They're the same on paper, but in reality they function differently for different people and different groups of people. And the laws are built to protect some people and to vilify others, regardless of what they do, just like who they are. And yeah, for a lot, and like Will being bi means she can pass if she wants to. She can find a guy and maybe be happy and never have to deal with like all that metric ton of shit. But she doesn't, because she wouldn't do that just for that. But it does mean that like there's this area of her life that is criminalized. Like she is herself criminalized, and that is, I think, always there. It's that she always has to like keep in the back of her head, the front of her head. It's like, and just like constantly showing that the world isn't built for some people. Like it is tailor-made, and the tailors were like, no, this whole group of people was not meant to walk around in this. That was like a really meandering way of answering.
I liked it. Well said. Okay, slightly different note. Was there anything especially surprising that turned up in the research for this particular installment, and anything you wish could have made the cut that wound up not fitting in? For a different book in the series too.
For a different book in the series?
Whichever is easier for you.
I don't know. I'm trying.
We can also move on.
What made it in and what didn't make it in. There was a lot. So like a lot of the research for this book sort of blended into the research for the next book, and I don't want to like I don't want to do any spoilers. I did find it fascinating when I was reading a lot of these books in the last year, or like a lot of the research books in the last year, that a lot of the laws governing queer people and drag specifically are like I was reading about them and how they were used. Like they were just sort of like these mushy laws that police could just sort of pick and choose from whenever they wanted an excuse to like take somebody who was like gender non-conforming off the street and throw them in jail. What I was reading all about that at the same time that all of the drag bans were happening across the country, and all of like the book bans were happening across the country. It's just constantly. It shouldn't surprise me, but it does. Just how much history is, and yeah, I could have like really just gone real nitty gritty and like, here are some laws that existed in 1946. Do they sound familiar? But I didn't. Although I did. There is a scene near the end of Murder Across Your Mind. Show it rather than throw a bunch of exposition.
And Will is also a big fan of sort of the pulp classics of her day. She also is able to pop a criminal in this book due to her being a fan of unsuccessful theater, which I like for her. Don't want to spoil anything else, but was there any kind of like bad culture that you absorbed in order to write this book, as well as, like the great kind of noir classics that these books are so lovingly nodding to? I'm just curious, sort of like Will's talking about radio shows and stuff like that. Was there any of that stuff that you were digging into to sort of grab her voice or stuff like that?
So a lot of her voice, like from book one, it's a lot from Rex Out's Nero Award and Archie Goodwin's voice, and sort of like that whole tongue-in-cheek, hard-boiled patois of like mid-American detective fiction. That was her voice, but I grew up loving old radio dramas, like, so I didn't have to do any like research into like The Shadow or any I already know them. I had to like look up specifics if I wanted to reference them. During the last book, during Secrets, Dives, and Blood, because like Holly wrote for pulp magazines, I went on eBay and I bought a handful of them, like ones from like the late 30s through like 1946, just so I can like have an idea of like what stories are in it and also what ads are in it, which became very important in that book. And like oh man, we think we're obsessed with true crime now. Oh boy, there were dozens of true crime magazines that were on the stands in 1945, 1946. And then like the fiction stuff was not the best. It was really not the best. There's a reason like it was all printed on disposable paper. Although sometimes you get like people sneaking in, and then they put into like paperbacks. But yeah, I read a lot of bad pulp mysteries. But I did get to like I mean there is like this element of pulp adventure in all of the Pentecost and Parker stuff that means I get to have like Will do some like fun action. But like yeah, because you froze. Did
Okay.
I freeze?
Maybe we both froze. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. You are back in real time. Yes.
Fabulous. So yeah, the magic of Zoom or whatever. A bit earlier to your background as a playwright and sort of the way that influences your use or kind of your kind of restraint or surrounding exposition. And I was kind of curious what other parts of playwriting you feel are helpful to you in the novel form, and what are sort of like, oh man, I prefer, I can just make my character go to the next scene and, on stage, we can fade to black in a way that you can fade to black in a book too.
Yeah. I think playwriting really comes in with plotting, because even in like super character driven plays, like live theater is just plot. Like it is like you have such a limited amount of theatrical real estate. Like there's so little time, and there's so little physical space, and there's so little audience attention. Like you really have to like grab them in the first 10 minutes. Then you really can't let them go because, people have bodies and bladders and will nod off. So I think after like a decade or so of writing plays, when I started writing novels, it was kind of like Superman coming to Earth and being like, oh my God, I can fly. I have all this room. I have not only room in the sense I have an entire city or world in order to like have stuff happen in. I've got an entire internal monologue that never have to be spoken out loud. Like I can just have her think things, and now the audience knows it or the readers know it, and that's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that was just a big thing. The trade-off is that I now have to constantly think about what people are physically doing and what they're wearing all the time. And before, I had actors who would like, I don't know, do something with your hands. I don't care. Or like I had costume designers who would figure out the appropriate thing. And now I have so many bookmarks on my browser of like Sears and Roebuck's catalogs from the 1940s and just like fashion stuff. Because I can't have everyone like wear the same damn like A-line dress every scene.
And Will is usually very, very well turned out, so you're doing a great job.
It's because I spent so much time. I'm like, oh, that's a fantastic outfit. I'm going to describe it. Yeah.
Love that. We talked a little bit before about sort of your deep bench of the supporting cast. Which character do you feel like is the most fun to write who's not one of our, kind of heroines?
Oh man. So let's see. I mean, I don't think Holly is. I think Holly is a supporting character, but I think like her and Mrs. Campbell, I would put in like the core group now because like they're there all the time, or they will. In Holly, not as much there in this book, but like she is always in Phil's mind. For like smaller supporting cast, I think like from Murder Under Her Skin, I got to introduce like a ton of circus performers, like people who like have just fantastically flamboyant personalities and also know Will intimately. And we get back in Murder Crossed Her Mind. And I'm not going to say who it is. Just
I know who it is.
And Maeve Bailey, former man. She's just like a that's Maeve. So I'm gonna pick her today.
Okay, love it. What's a question that you wish
your face is frozen?
Oh, can you hear me now?
I wonder if mine is.
Oh no. How about now?
It's like fast forwarded through like so fun times.
Okay.
Hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? No. Okay.
I can't hear you, but I can hear it.
Okay. Now? Anything now? Oh, come on. Okay.
I can't. You're still. Okay. Oh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me talk?
Yes. Can you hear me? No.
So I'm going to assume that everyone can hear me or see me. I can't hear you yet. The question. That's very tough. I think we really frozen now. Bet. All right. So Carolyn had to pop off, and now it's just me monologuing. Wait, no, we got two Carolyns.
Oh, this is
fun.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. You're just a black box.
Oh no, I have two faces on my screen.
Yeah, I have two black boxes on my screen.
Okay. Did the question in the chat come through?
Yes, it's what's a question you wish people would ask you about Will and Lillian, and I just have no idea.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one then.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. What kind of books do you read off the clock? Is there a genre you love that's totally different from your own writing?
I mean, I do read a lot of contemporary, like, crime and mystery, but I also love horror, and some hard sci-fi, but like a lot of horror. Like I just finished Stephen Graham Jones's book, the title of which I can never. It's like the only good Indians.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. People say all the good Indians, but that's not right. That is not the saying. Yeah, the only good Indians, which was great. Yeah. So, but yeah, just a ton of contemporary mysteries. Like Michael Connelly, John Sanford, Tana French, John Connolly. No relation to Michael. Those are mysteries are my comfort food. And I've been consuming a lot of comfort food in the last 5 years.
Fair enough. And then last question for me. What's your best advice for mystery writers starting out? What did you wish you knew way back when?
Oh my gosh. I have recently discovered the joys of or the usefulness of creating skeleton drafts, which are basically glorified outlines. And that has been so super helpful in saving me time, in being able to figure out how to fit things in, and making sure that everything is going to work before I get halfway through a draft and discover that it doesn't. And I for years I have eschewed outlining, just because it's so much work, and it's like a whole other step. But now I love it. So that's like the technical thing. The more like the thing you could put on a t-shirt is probably just assume that your reader is smarter than you. Like you do not need as many clues as you think you do. If your reader is the kind of person that you are, and I assume that you're writing mysteries, then you probably read them and love them and love figuring stuff out. If they're the kind of mystery where you figure stuff out, then yeah, your readers are real smart, and they will put the pieces together a lot quicker than you ever think they will.
Okay, love it. And I don't see any questions in the Q&A at the moment. If anybody has any, please pop them in to that chat. Otherwise, I guess we'll turn it back over. Unless there's anything that you wish I would have asked you, Steve, by all means. Now's the time.
No, I'm fine. I should come up. That's a good question. I should come up with like questions I wish I was asked. But usually by this time, I'm just like, I hope I answered everything that I was asked.
You've held up pretty well despite technical difficulty. So,
yeah, guys, if anyone who is listening to this has any questions,
we got one.
We do. Yay.
Okay. Oh, is there anything that Carolyn has suggested you edit out that you've been sad to say goodbye to? Be honest, Steve.
I don't.
It doesn't have to be me either. Steve has had other editors in the past.
I have had other. I don't think sad. I don't think I've ever gotten like this isn't working. Like, you the notes, like on that door, who gave me the it might have been Mark. Secret. that to who did could you obscure its character to put in there? But yeah, it's rarely stuff that is the only thing that need to shore up plot points. Yeah.
Cool. Truthfully, you did just
Any
cut
other
out there, but
questions, guys?
that was great. I thought for me, I think it's all on my end. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. If anybody has something to say, speak now.
No, I don't see anything.
All right. Oh,
nope.
Wait. Okay. In the modern era, what songs would be in Lillian and Will's Spotify Wrapped? Love that. No pressure, Steve.
In Lillian and Will's Spotify Wrapped. Well, I'm gonna assume that Will has the same musical taste that I do.
Okay.
In which case, what was in my Spotify Wrapped? From top to bottom, it was Paramore, Dessa, K-Flay, Lizzie McAlpine, I think Maggie Rogers were my top. And so, yeah, I think those. Oh yeah, Dessa especially. She hip-hop artist out of Minneapolis. I think both Will and Lillian would like her for different reasons. Yeah, I think that's yes. And then we have how many books do you plan for the series? It is open-ended. I sort of established in Fortune Favors the Dead that Will is writing these from sometime in the future. I do not say how far in the future. So I've never committed to how long the series can go. I will say that I have up through book 7 plotted. I know what happens all through book 7. But then I've also got ideas for a number of stories after that. At some point, I really want to tell the story of how Lillian and Mrs. Campbell met, which is an adventure, and things like that. But yeah, I have the first 7 books in the series plotted out. In my head, I have always referred to them as the Waterhouse cycle.
Okay.
Because Waterhouse, it culminates with a book that is all Olivia Waterhouse.
And she's our big bad, so for now.
Yeah, she is big bad. She is, as one of my friends called her, my chaotic neutral Moriarty. I'm like, yeah, that's good.
Well, I think that's it for our questions. Last chance, type fast if you've got pressing, burning questions for Stephen Spotswood, architect of the Pentecost and Parker mysteries. If not, just start reading if you haven't already. They're great. But yeah, otherwise, should we hand it back over to Mysterious Galaxy?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. There we go. This is quite fun because I do have 2 characters.
Sorry.
No, the whole thing, it tracks for a really interesting conversation that had these kind of side quests going on, and it was great. It was very fun. As my coworker, who's the moderator, was saying, they're answering and asking really good questions. They answer really cool questions. So we were having a great time. We're very much self-led, which thank you so much, and really held in there through really the weirdest tech issues I've seen so far. So I'm sorry about that. But
beat that future panel.
Thank you for sticking in there. It looks really filled out. It's really nice. But to all the folks who've been viewing with us, if you watched that and like me went, wow, that's really interesting, and a lot to keep in mind on a Monday evening, and you're like, I gotta rewatch that. Don't worry, go to the event page. It'll be there for you. You can rewatch, you can listen, you can hear all the very cool answers and helpful suggestions and explanations of a skeleton versus an outline and that sort of thing. Get in there, have fun. You didn't have questions because you didn't read the book yet? No problem. Bottom of the event, right there. You can purchase the book and we'll send it to you with a fun signed book plate. But with all of that, I want to do just a quick thank you. I really appreciate both of you taking the time to chat today for our customers and your audience and fans. And I just actually a very cool look inside what the relationship is between author and editor and all of that. It's, you know, not everyone actually sees that. We just kind of know the names of the different parts. So, you know, I can't get people to do a round of applause that will make noise for you. But wow, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you taking the time this evening. It's been a true delight. And if there's anything else you want to say, but if not, I'm good to wrap it up and send you two to the green room. To the green room.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. And we're going to say goodbye to the chat. Oh my goodness. Stop recording.